Guys, what is going on? IkeGuitar here. Good to be back. Just got off the road here to give you guys some great new videos about guitar stuff. And today we're going to talk about selling and buying guitars. Now, I have been buying and selling guitars for a long time. My latest project is this guitar behind me, that Les Paul you see. I have been trading guitars since before COVID started, and I'm trying to make my way up to a custom shop. But to give you all some context, I started off with a very low-end Chinese guitar, and I've only traded, no cash involved, up to this American style LP. Now, I'm here to give you guys some advice and some tips and some, personal skills that you can take with you to help you guys make the most out of your guitar trading, wheeling, and dealing. But without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first thing you gotta know about buying and selling guitars is perceived value versus actual market value. Now, that is a bit of a loaded statement. Let's go over it. Perceived value is how much a seller thinks his guitar is worth, not necessarily what the guitar is worth. Market value is what the guitar is actually worth. So, for example, if your grandpa bought you a crappy guitar, but you loved it a lot, it would be priceless to you because it was from your grandpa, maybe, if you liked your granddad. But that market price of the guitar may only be a couple $100. It may not be as much as you think it is, especially if it's got some resonantial value with your family or your heart. That's important because all of the singing guitars out there are going to have some kind of value associated with them that the owner or the current owner is going to essentially inflate in order to make some extra money. I can't tell you how many times people have tried to oversell me on guitars. Like, man, I've got this great guitar. It's so awesome. It's so incredible. And it's like this trash Kramer or like Schecter. And I'm like, why would I ever want that guitar? Because the guitar is trash and it's not worth the amount of money they want to get for it. So be aware of that. The best way to get a good idea of the market value on an instrument is to go to a site like Reverb. They give you guys a good, overview of what things are selling for nowadays. When you're deciding how much your guitar is actually worth, make sure you get the correct data so you can get the best deal you can. Now, that being said, if you have a guy you want to buy a guitar from and his guitar is perceived to be a lot more than it actually is, there might not be any hope of you getting that guitar. If the guy's got it in his mind that he wants to sell it for so much, you're never going to buy it off his hands. Just forget it. That's the other thing about buying and selling guitars. You have to learn to let it go. So another tip for buying and selling guitars is you're going to have to learn to let things go. Now listen, I know we all have our loves. We have those guitars that we just want to keep, and you can keep those guitars, but don't forget it works for the other person as well. Sometimes you're going to find guitars that you just can't let go, but you have to. And sometimes you're going to find a guitar that you really, really like, but you just can't buy. You're not in the market for that right now. You have to learn to let the guitars go. There was a time that I had a guitar that I really wanted to buy. It was a Gibson ES335 Studio. Super hard to find. They're worth about $1,600. A guy was selling it for $1,100, no issues at all. And I was just like fighting with this guy, like, hey, I'll pick it up right now, like I'll buy it. And then last minute he said that some other guy swept in and picked it up, and I was bummed. What the heck? What a great guitar that I could have had instead of this one. But listen, it all works out in the wash. You're gonna lose some, you're gonna miss some will get away from you, but that's okay. And also, when it comes to selling guitars, if you guys have a guitar you have to sell and you have a hard time letting it go, just distance yourself from that, because it might be more worthwhile selling your guitar than actually keeping it. Alright, when it comes to buying and selling guitars, especially when it comes to buying guitars, you have to know what you're buying. That's really, really important. And you have to understand that once you buy a guitar from someone else, it is your responsibility, if you don't like it, to sell it somewhere else. I know that seems silly and kind of obvious, but hear me out here. So many people are in the buying and selling and trading guitar game, and there is a market for weird guitars. Specifically, I mean like parts casters and guitars that are built with Warmoth parts, or guitars that maybe don't have a name. Like, I've seen many guitars out in the world here and there that have like this no-name builder no one really knows about, and they're like, I'll sell this for $1,000. Well, according to the market, no one wants this guitar, so it should be worth a lot less. So be that in mind. I want you guys to understand that when you're buying and selling guitars, make sure you are calculating whether or not you're able to sell this guitar again if you happen to, buy it and not like it. A lot of people I get offers from for my guitars are these weird parts casters, or these weird Schecters, or the Music Mans of the world, or like some random, John Petrucci guitar that was made in Korea. No one is going to buy those guitars, ever. No one is going to spend their time looking at those guitars. No one's going to spend their time buying those guitars. And yes, there's always going to be a market somewhere. In Nashville, for sure, you're never going to sell an exotic metal guitar or some kind of parts caster for the price you want it. In this town, people want Gibson, people want Fender, and people want Gretsch, and people want Duesenberg. That's what I've found with the guitar market in general, specifically in Nashville as well. You have to buy a guitar you're going to be able to flip if you don't like it. I don't mean those weird off 2009 Gibsons with the weird robotic tuners. I mean like an actual Gibson, an actual Fender. Those guitars will sell. All the others, be warned, you might be stuck with it for a very long time. Another tip for buying and selling guitars is that do not buy a guitar that's been modded. Oh my gosh, I made a whole video on this about modded guitars. Your modded guitars will not sell. If you are trying to find a guitar that is a Fender or a Gibson, but someone switched out the tuners or the pickups or the bridge or whatever else, be warned. This guitar is probably not going to sell. And if it does, it's going to be for much less of the value. If I'm going to buy a modded guitar, I make sure that I'm getting the original parts, the original stock parts with the guitar I'm buying. You do not want to have a guitar that's been Frankensteined in any way. The market does not tend to reflect that well on your selling price, okay? So when you're buying and selling guitars, make sure you're not getting modded guitars. It will ruin your life. I'm telling you, it's a pain in the butt. My next tip is quality guitars can be found from other builders, but you're going to eat it when you try to resell it. So that being said, I've got a number of custom guitars. They're made by Russ Guitars, 30th Street Guitars in New York City. The guitars retail for about $2,200, $2,300 a guitar, and they're very expensive. And in fact, I've bought 2 full-price Russ guitars. I wanted some things very specific to my sound, and I got them. But there are other guitars that I've bought from custom builders that I've been able to get at a really great price because the market's not there for them. That being said, I've got a Russ bass that would cost me $2,300, but I got it for $1,100. What a steal. It's an incredible bass. I'll never sell it. The other guitar is a Bluesman Vintage Sedan. You guys have seen it on my videos. John Scott over at Bluesman sell these guitars for also the $2,300 kind of range. I got that guitar for straight up $1,000. So if the builder you have in mind is selling guitars for that much of a price, may want to think about just finding one on Reverb or on eBay or on Facebook Marketplace from someone who doesn't perceive the value as much as what they got it for originally. That's really important if you want great custom built guitars for the cheap. Find someone who has a brand that isn't well known and then buy it off their hands and keep that sucker. It'll be great guitar, you can use it, and you didn't spend over $2,000 on it. Alright, my final tip on buying and selling guitars is it doesn't hurt to ask. Now listen, I always will go through a bunch of guitars on Facebook Marketplace and ask every single one, just copy paste, are you willing to trade, you willing to sell? And if they say yes, we're willing to meet halfway, you might be surprised what guitars you'll find that you can actually get if you just ask that person whether or not they want to trade or not. And it may require some cash involved with the guitar. I know that many people in my archetype right now in that $1,000 range are going to ask for a little more money along with that Les Paul. But listen, if it takes a little bit of money and a guitar you already have to make a great deal, then I would say go for it, especially if you can get rid of some stock that maybe wouldn't sell usually. Throw in some pickups or throw in some pedals or do something to make the pot a little sweeter. You'd be surprised what little small things will do, even though they're not big in value, can do to change a buyer or seller's mind about whether they want to sell that guitar to you or not. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing. I make videos all the time. Guys, it has been great to talk to you about buying and selling guitars. Next video on this series, I'm going to be going over some Facebook Marketplace ads for guitars, and I'll go over why or why not that guitar will not sell, and it will be a great time. We'll have some funnies. We'll have a great time looking at all these loser guitars on the market. But until next time, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.